Shanti, everyone. Welcome to the Monday workshop series. So just to give you a little context of the session today, every Monday we do this series where we invite special yogis who have been through this spiritual path, but at the same time who have a unique experience or unique challenges or the situations or the test papers, we may call, that they have crossed through and they used it successfully, take it as accepted the challenge that life has to offer and then used it for the benefit to grow in the spiritual path. And today we have with us Sister Joni, who is one of that special Baba's jewel, who has I wouldn't have strength to get through what she has gone through, but she is not only a mother, she's also a grandmother. She's not just a mother and grandmother, she's still taking care of the whole Laukik family and also a Laukik family. Presently, she's serving in Sacramento Center. And whoever has met Sister Joni, she's always smiling and blissful and full of optimism. I would say like she's the one who's always Harshit Mukh, like Prasanna Chitta. And Baba always says like no prashna, only Prasanna Chitta, no questions, only solutions. She's one of such embodiment, Baba's jewel. I never knew that she had to solve a lot of puzzles that life has to bring into her lap, and she successfully got through all the challenges. And today we will hear the story and journey of Sister Joni. And as always, to take the most out of these sharings, my personal request is to put yourself in Sister Joni's shoes as you're listening through the experience. Relate to what you have gone through the journey, and this will help us to resonate something deeper within us. Because, like as always, BKs can relate to BKs, because BKs are those who have been through this journey of 5,000 cycle for a long period of time. They have the wide range of experiences, the best to not so best experiences. So not everyone can relate to BKs, because only BKs have gone through this journey. Relate to that, and that will help us definitely to unblock some of the things where we are stuck in our own journey of spiritual path, right? So without any further ado, I invite Sister Joni. Sister Joni, please welcome.
Thank you, Harsha, so much. It's absolutely a delight to be here this evening with all of you. I consider it a great privilege and honor, and only Baba can do this.
Thank you. So Sister Joni will take us through her journey in 3 different phases. First, she is going to share her personal experience, how she came into Gyan, and then how Baba got hold of her, and what is that moment that made her commit to this path, realize that this is God but nobody else, and what is she doing presently, and how Madhuban, how Dadis are helped in her journey, what role that they played and what the role they are playing right now in her spiritual journey. Yes, Journey Ben. And then there will be a little bit of meditation commentaries, reflective activities Sister Joni will take us through. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. And my spiritual journey with Baba began. I was a Sunday school teacher at a Unity church, which is a New Thought church. and I was the youth director there. And I was helping raise my grandchildren, the two oldest ones in particular. And so we would attend the church on Sundays, and I didn't come from a spiritual family. There was no prayers, no devotion, no mention of God whatsoever. You were on your own. And so I thought, well, with my grandchildren, this needs to be different. And so I thought, I'll find something. And so we found this New Thought church, which interestingly enough, if you study the background of them, they are linked to Eastern philosophy. And there was a group of women who were very much touched by this Eastern philosophy when they attended the World Religious Parliament and heard Swami Vivekananda speak. And from that, they took this Eastern philosophy and they mixed it with Christianity and brought it to the Western world. So on Wednesday nights at this particular church, they're usually quite open-minded, and they would invite guests to speak. And so this particular evening, they invited Sister Hansa and Brother Vinod to come and give a talk. And so they did come, but they brought like an entourage with them. They brought Professor Shaw, which you may have heard from him in San Diego, and he is a very lovely soul, and a brother by the name of Surrender. And so they came to the church, they gave their talk, and Professor Shaw actually did a PowerPoint. It must have been one of the very first PowerPoints ever on the soul. And so the woman who was sitting next to me, she said, "Did you get that after the presentation?" And I said, "No." But afterwards, I was talking with Sister Hansa and Brother Vinod, and Brother Vinod started asking me some questions. And he says, "What do you do here?" I said, "I'm the youth director." And he said, "We have, the Brahma Kumari have this wonderful program, this Living Values program." And I said, and so he told me a little bit about it. And I thought, oh my gosh, something that can actually restore the good quality, the good character of children again at an early age. So I talked to them and I presented this to the minister, and he agreed that they could come once a month and present this program, which they did. So this went on for a few months, but along the way, some things happened, and then the program was discontinued. So for myself, it wasn't so much about what was being said as that something I was feeling, and I wanted more of it. And so I called Sister Hansa and I said, I would like to continue with this study of what can be done. And she said, "Well, would you like to take the 7 days course?" And I had absolutely no idea what a 7 days course was. And so I said, okay. So I started showing up once a week at the center for this course, and Brother Vinod was guided me through this course. And the first two lessons, it was just like an aha moment. And I thought, oh my word, this is God. You can know God. And it was such an eye-opening event that it was possible to know God and to have Him in your life. So anyway, I continued with that. And so I told the sister, I said, well, do you have anything I can do? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, do you need help here? And she said, she said, okay. And so I started showing up every morning. I would take my grandsons to school. And then I would show up at the center and I would say, I want to hear the Murli, because I had a bit of an introduction to that. So they would each take turns. One time Sister Hansu would read, one time Brother Vinod, and I would just sit there and listen to this Murli. And sometimes my second grandson would be with me on his way to school, and we would be a bit early, because then if you wanted to hear the Murli, you had to come to the center. So he would sleep on the couch in the back of the room while I sat there and listened to the Murli. Then when the Murli was over, I would get him up and we would go out the door and I would take him to school. And so this continued on. And once he was in school, then I got the notion that while he was at school in the morning and I wasn't working with my husband, I could go to the center and I could help. So I usually had to pick him up by noon. And so I would go to the center and I would help with anything the sister wanted me to do. We're talking sweeping the floor, doing the dishes, helping her make chapatis, which was a disaster. I could never make them round. And so anyway, it was an absolutely wonderful basis for this spiritual journey. But I think one of the fortunes that I had was from the very beginning, I was slowly creating this habit of continuing on this journey, no matter what it looked like. And so what was so fascinating about all this was the family, because they were all working at that time, and I had both my oldest sons, my husband, and my two grandsons at the house. So I had a house full, but I was able to arrange it to where I could get to the center and then get back home and take care of my responsibilities. So today or yesterday in Avyati Paravar, when they talked about that one step of courage and the Father helps, he was helping in amazing ways. You had to take that one step. It had to be like, okay, today I went for an hour. Maybe I could stretch it and go for an hour and a half. Yeah, okay, let's do it. And so slowly, I was able to develop more time at the center and help in so many different ways. And so I think, as probably all of you have experienced, that Baba is, or Baba was, or is preparing you for this spiritual journey all along the way. Because as my children were growing up, in the very beginning, I was alone with the children. And so I had to wear many hats, as you probably saw on the flyer. And I had to take whatever job was available. And so it wasn't like I had this, although I'd had some college, I'd had 2 years of college, I didn't have like this big educational background where I could, go into more professional fields. So I had to take whatever I could get. So by doing this, by having the experience and the opportunity to wear all these different hats and all these different fields of the work world, it gave me the opportunity to develop different skills. And so when the sister would ask me to do different things, I was never the master of anything, but I knew enough to get the job done. And I'd had enough experiences in all these different job opportunities that I could find solutions to different things. And so I think Baba prepares us before, and then, once we come to this knowledge, it's like, wah, blah, blah, blah. And so, was it easy? No. But one thing, another something that could be of benefit to some of you was that I never forced the family to do anything. It was like when Baba says, you become the example. And so I began to realize how to involve them very gently and very subtly in Baba's service. So, for example, if I needed a ride to the center, say my car wasn't working, and one of them gave me a ride to the center, that was benefit for them. In the Murli, Baba says, at the end, there will be 2 types of souls that will be very happy. One type of soul will be those who stayed on this path and made it work no matter what. And then the other type of souls will be the cooperative souls, the souls that cooperated with you. So the Murli every day was like my guide. And so when Baba said that, I thought to myself, well, now how can I involve them in service? So for example, my husband was very cooperative. Whatever sister needed at the center, he was there. He was so cooperative with her. If she needed something fixed, for example, one time she had a slow cooker that she thought, well, maybe he could fix it. So I brought the slow cooker home, and I said to him, can you fix this? And he said yes. And he fixed it, and he sent it back to her. And so he was so cooperative with her in such a way that I was also very careful about making effort to keep this respect for the Brahma Kumari and what they do in place. And so she would say, Johnny, the garage door is not opening and I don't know what to do. I can't fix it. I tried. I said, okay. So I would tell him, he would go to the center. He would make time. He was an electrical contractor. He would make time during the day and he would go and fix that garage door for her, for Baba, right? For Baba. And so when he passed away, it was not sad. There was no sadness. Even his Lokic family their sadness was very minimal. And they were very, very firm Christians. And there was no sadness, and I felt no sadness because he was so cooperative. And sometimes I would say, there's a program at the center. It's Diwali. Would you like to come? He'd say, yeah, and he would come. Or sometimes one time we had to go to the Rose Garden at the Capitol. And I said, would you like to go with me? He says, yes. And he went to the interfaith service. So the ways of involving the family with service, and even in subtle ways, very subtle ways. They came and they did repair work, and my sons were there. My grandsons came and did yard work and, and this and that. And so I think involving the family as well. And then Harsha was talking about caregiving. And so caregiving is so powerful. And it gives you the opportunity to use everything Baba says in the Murli. Everything. And it gives you the opportunity to imbibe it. And for example, tolerance. You have to have tolerance. And so you have to have acceptance. It's I cannot control everything as much as I would like to. And I would say to those that I care for, I had one gentleman that I cared for. We had known him, the family had known him for 50 years. And we cared for him till the end. And so this is an opportunity to use Baba's knowledge. And when you have your own ideas and you say, no, you should not be doing this. No, blah, blah, blah. And they say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to the doctor today. And I say, oh, did you have an appointment? No, I'm not going. So what can you do? Nothing. So one of the things that has also been very helpful to me in my journey with all of this is every morning at Amrit Vela, putting the whole family before Baba, just for a few minutes. It doesn't have to be anything lengthy. It can be more if you wanted to, but sending them the light and might and the power to do this, just like Baba says to us. What do you have to do? Excuse me, I have a message. What do you have to do? You have to have knowledge, you have to have yoga, and you have to use this. And only then can you do service. And service is at the end. And so the Murli was my absolute lifeline. Whatever was happening in the Murli, whatever the blessing was, whatever Baba said, watch out for, was more than likely going to come up for me in that day. Sometimes I would pass, sometimes I would not. Of course, Sister Mohini said today, she was talking about check your percentage of passing. And what percentage did I pass? 50% is better than 25 the day before. Excuse me. And so it is such a powerful journey. So another thing that was helpful with those that I cared for was Baba talked today in the Murli about diet. So when my husband first came out of the hospital, he had a severe stroke. And when he first came out of the hospital, they had him on so many medications, you couldn't even believe it. Oh my gosh, he had like 7 medications. So because of his condition at that time, I was able to keep him on a vegetarian diet. So this went on for several months. And the doctors even actually started reducing his medications because his health seems to be was stabilizing. So what happened was that his sisters came to visit him, and he happened to mention this diet. And his sisters told him, no, that's impossible. You will die if you don't eat meat. And he was like horrified. So he said to me, I have to eat meat. And I said, well, okay, so let's see if we can make some sort of an arrangement. So he was not an invalid and he was able to cook. So I said, how about you cook for yourself and I will cook for me. And then if I am cooking something that you like, you are always more than welcome. I would be happy to share it with you. So we more or less continued that way. Now, the other soul that I was caregiving for had diabetes. And it was severe diabetes. And we had to watch him very closely. In the beginning, it wasn't quite as severe. Then it slowly progressed worse and worse. And he would eat out. He ate out a lot. He enjoyed that. So he ended up in the hospital, and he had to go to rehab. He had to go to a care facility for probably over a month. In the care facility, they were feeding him whatever, and it wasn't local, so there wasn't anything I could do about it, take him anything or anything like that. So when he came back to the house, he was on insulin. His numbers were 300, which, like, I think normal is like 100 or something like that. So anyway, the caregivers, I had asked for help at that particular point. So they started sending help. So I knew that I could probably get him on a plant-based diet. So I went to the store, and he liked to cook he wanted to cook his own food. So I thought, okay, let's see, what does he like? So I went to the store, and they have these wonderful, like, frozen dinners and burgers and all kinds of, they call it Impossible Burger now and all these things. So I thought, okay, let's give it a try. Oh, he loved it. He loved it. So then I was able to control the diet. So the home nurse came, and the home nurse was asking me, okay, well, now you're going to have to learn to do the insulin shots and this and that. And he says, but let me check his numbers. I said, okay. His number was went from 300 to 146. The home care nurse looked at me and said, how did you do that? I said, very simple, plant-based diet. And so he was very much amazed by that, and of course making notes of it, and so forth and so on. But it was very powerful to experience that. We used to teach the vegetarian cooking classes, and I know one time we had the absolute delightful opportunity to present the class at Anyabhuti. It was a wonderful experience. And so I had saw one film called Forks Over Knives. And I happened to see the film at a Seventh-day Adventist church. I just happened to come across it, and I said, I'm going to go. And they were presenting a lot of the same things in that film about how so many doctors were doing research where a plant-based diet was very helpful into stabilizing their conditions. And of course, all of this, giving them light and might, taking them to Baba, reading them early of what I had to do and what I had to accept was very helpful. And sometimes I just sit and I just tell Baba, thank you. And he says, no, you don't need to thank me. He says, that's devotion. But I still say, yes, Baba, I have to thank you. And so there are so many ways of taking that step of courage and receiving Baba's help. Baba always helped, but I had to take that step of courage. I had to say to myself, Baba, I want to do more of your service. How can I do that? And I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to stay, as I mentioned before, I'm just going to stay that one extra half hour, or I'm just going to stay that one extra day. I'm just going to add a day, and I'm just going to see what happens. And it was amazing what would happen. But I had to take that step of courage. And so making them cooperative is possible. And believe me, It is so beneficial. You will not see this family sitting in Merle class, but yet they all get bits and pieces here and there from me whenever they are open to something. And so you constantly have such an opportunity to serve. I think it was Daddy Prakash Mani. Once again, here we go, Avayata Parvar. And she was saying, "What do you mean you have no service?" She says, "It's a jungle of thorns out there. How can you say there's no service?" And so keeping yourself from being disheartened. Today wasn't a good day. Okay, get up, dust yourself off, get going. Okay, so you made a mistake, so you didn't pass. As Sister Denise says, so what? So you embarrassed yourself. Just get up and get going. And so I have some notes here. I think just persistence, um, consistency. Consistency was another thing that happened with not only in caregiving is it stabilizing the patient, but here at home, it's like stabilizing the family. It's like the family can depend that I'm going to be home at 1 o'clock and they can have lunch. They can depend on that. Or if they have a problem, they can depend that I'm going to be there to listen or support in any way that I can. And so this also too has to do with being the detached observer and how I can help without taking on what is happening with them. Because prior to coming to Baba, everything the family went through, I went through. If one of them had a situation, made a mistake, got in trouble, whatever, I was going through it the same as them. So this self-care, as even medical professionals will tell you, is very important. And that was something I had to learn. And it took me a long time to learn that. But self-care is very, very important. Otherwise, as you well know, it can begin to tell on your health. It can be an obstacle to your yoga and your loving hearts, which I think all Brahmins have. I don't think I know of any Brahmin who isn't a caregiver. One time at a Mother's Day program, somehow or another, the topic came up, how many children do you have, or something like that. So, everyone was sharing, I have this many, that many, whatever. Some didn't have any at all. But we asked Sister, we said, "Sister, how many children do you have?" And she says, "About 30 or 40 or 50. All those students." We said, "Yes, sister, that is true. That is true." And so caregiving, even if you haven't had any children physically, you're still a caregiver. And I don't know a Brahmin who's not a caregiver. That's why we're Brahmins, right? making things better. And we used to do it physically by physically caring for everyone, which can be quite draining. And one time my daughters said to me, because we would do, I'm sure all of you are doing it too, you do all the celebrations, birthdays, Christmas for Christians, Diwali, all these things you do. And one day my daughters looked at me and they said, Mom, you're doing everything. Why don't you let us do something? Let us do it. And I thought, well, yeah, good idea. All right, okay, from now on, you do it. And that was very nice. I enjoyed that very much, let me tell you. And so, Brother Harsha, I believe by my clock, it looks 7:15. I don't know if you have any questions or anyone else has any questions. I know sometimes you do this in an interview format, and I have been sharing quite a bit. So is there anything next that we need to do?
Oh, this is beautiful, Joni. If anyone have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and see, it should be able to unmute yourself and then ask the question. But Sister Joni, couple of things that comes to my mind is, especially in caregiving, especially when it is a long-term commitments, right? It needs a lot of resilience, like patience, and then you don't see things changing in any near future, right? So, so where do you fall back on? What do you fall back on in this situation when you know that this person is not going to be normal, and then you have to take care of this person for rest of your life, kind of things, right? And day to day it is wearing you out, day after day. Where do you find the strength to continue, especially when it is not one day thing or 1 week or 1 year thing?
Well, that's a very good question, Arshabai. And the strength is Baba, and the strength is the Murli. And also, too, knowing now in my particular situation, I knew that their health would slowly deteriorate. So, as that began to happen, before I came to Baba, I worked for a group that was called Compassion in Action. And it was during the AIDS epidemic. And what this group did was they sat with the dying. And the way they felt was that no one should die alone. And so at that time, AIDS was similar to the COVID. And the families, I worked at the AIDS hospice, and the families wouldn't come, or the families couldn't come. So we came in and we took shifts when they would call and they would feel that this particular soul was passing. And so we would go in and we would we would sit with them. And as Bob has mentioned in the Murli, often when they passed, it would be at the quiet times of the morning, like Amrit Vela. It would be early morning when the earth is more quiet. And so this gave me a whole nother way of looking at birth and death. And so when I came to Baba and I learned this knowledge of birth and death, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And so I felt like that I was like a midwife. Like a midwife comes in and you're welcoming in a baby. You're welcoming a baby into this life. So I felt like just the opposite. I was like a midwife, but I was like birthing them in the opposite direction. And so caregiving can be like that. And so I began to observe them and to use Baba to give them the strength and to give them the power to face whatever it is that they need to face, or to talk about whatever they need to talk about, or whatever it is that they need to do. And we learn this beautiful, wonderful technique called active listening. And a lot of times just being a good listener. And I think also too, as Baba talks to us about self-respect, helping them keep their self-respect. Because here you are, one moment, you're this totally independent, active person. And a blink of the eye, you need help. And to be able to accept that is huge. And it's such a surrender to that. And so to help them to maintain their dignity of, you need to know when to allow them to have their privacy. You need to understand it's a very, very, caregiving is a very close relationship. And so when Baba talks about wishing someone well and keeping good wishes for them, I think the caregivers in Madhavan for the daddies are like amazing souls. And I think it was the, sorry, I'm not remembering everyone's name, but the caregiver for Daddy Gulzar. And she was mentioning something about she had a concern for Daddy. She was worried about Daddy, some aspect of something or another. And Daddy said, you have to quit sending me those thoughts. And so Sister Shivani often mentions this, is what kind of thoughts are we sending that soul during this transition time, from this transition from total independence to now I have to be dependent. And that adjustment, and to help them maintain their dignity, but at the same time, being what they call an advocate for them, because an advocate for them is very, very important, because they can get lost in the cracks of the medical system. And it's not that anything saying something negative about the medical system, because I don't see it that way. The way I see it is they're overwhelmed. So, like for me, I felt like when I would go to the doctor with one of them, and I could mention maybe their medication, or I could remind them of their next appointment, or any of these things were so important for that support uh, system for them. And so Baba, all the way, Amrit Vela, Murli class, set your day up, take that one point with you, keep that point with you throughout the day, writing down, making affirmations for yourself, whatever you need to do. But the trick is to just keep doing it. I said to Baba one day, I said, I just show up. I'm going to show up, and then, whatever unfolds, unfolds. And, this idea of that, doing your yoga, and you have a very good, as has been shared many times, you're having a very lovely meditation experience, very deep, very, very powerful. So for me, when I would come out of that yoga, something would surface, something would come out. Baba would bring something out. And so one time I told Baba, I said, you know what, Baba? I said, I'm not going to do yoga anymore. I said, every time I have this lovely experience, I said, then something comes up. So he says, yes. He says it does, because something's coming out and I'm giving you power to deal with it. And so keeping Baba with you, keeping that Murli as your lifeline. They say that all the answers, all the solutions are in the Murli, and that's true. They are. And at night, I got in the habit of writing my chart. And the reason that I got in the habit of writing my chart was one time when I was in Madhuban many years ago, when Sashi was in charge of accommodations for everyone. She was sharing her experience of how she maintained her stage. And you can imagine being in charge of accommodations for everyone must be huge. This one needs this one needs that, this one's, a little up and down. Being in that all day, every single day, and still being able to maintain your stage. And that's caregiving. And so she said what she did was she wrote her chart. She wrote to Baba every single night. and she held nothing in her heart. Now, for myself, I had a period of time in my life where, in my Brahmin life, I was gotten stuck, and I didn't know how to get unstuck. And I had to learn that. And I actually had to have some other Brahmins help me learn how to do that. So we're caregivers for each other. Baba's a caregiver for us. We're caregivers for the world. As it mentioned in the flyer, that was so beautiful. And so this is all about us supporting and caring for one another in a whole nother way, not competing, not comparing, but caring. So if you're a Brahmin, you're a caregiver. Shanti, Harsha, did you have
It's
anything else you
beautiful.
want to add?
Yeah, and I was just listening to you sharing on, because especially when I see a dead end or a wall where towards we are heading towards, and it always asks this question: is it worth doing, or should I continue to do this, and things like that. And like you are calling out, we feel we are blocked. We unblock only when we see the big picture. Otherwise, you see a wall, we are running into a wall. It's like, it feels like no point doing this, right? And one word comes to my mind is we are all marathoners. The marathon, you just can't just sprint and then drain all your energy, but you have to have that persistence to end to the finish line. And it needs a lot of resilience, a lot of stamina. You got to tap into the reserves of your energy, which is not a sprint energy, So I was thinking, like, the word that came to my mind is, only way to get through this is you got to exercise your Adi and Anadi sanskaras. You have to exercise the nature of the soul. Otherwise, you can't sustain. Because most of the time in the world, we see that, I mean, even the self-help courses that they give, and even the compassionate courses that they give, they always say that, see, it's a reservoir. If you're not refilling with happiness, no matter how much care and love that you start giving, you start going down. You need to learn how to replenish yourself. It's a limited resource. It's not a unlimited resource. So for us, Baba gives us access to that unlimited resource. So, and then we can only access that only when we are soul conscious. In other words, when we are exercising our sanskaras of the soul, then only we can access Baba. Then only we can access that mindset of eternity, right? Otherwise, we always say, like, oh, there is a dead end. What is the point of going into this? And that is what, like, you're calling out the healthcare situation. It is growing like anything. Like, I was looking at statistics today. It was like 40% of the next generation jobs are all in healthcare. 40% of the overall. More than 40% is just growing like anything. And the funds are less. So people will be overwhelmed. So definitely services will cut short. And then you are all by yourself, right? And how do you handle? So a lot of people will feel like they're running into a wall, and then they fall into depression, that bottomless pit, right? And then it becomes our responsibility as a PKs to pull them out of that dark hole, right? So yeah, and then this is the only opportunity to exercise, because we have some sanity still left in a way. Because things will fly like anything, and then people will start losing sanity. Like literally, they start losing sanity, and then any reason, like you can say color or male, female, or black and white, or culture, or immigrant or non-immigrant or native, any difference will be a reason to pull people down. And then especially when Baba says things will start happening without reason, and this mindset of low mental energy is what leads to all of these things. And then it's all over growing.
Yes.
Only solution, again, like you are calling out, you got to tap into God's energy. You got to access that, learn to, you need to train yourself. It does not happen overnight when things start happening. You got to train. It's a long period of time, this training.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you for being a role model. So I always get inspired every time I look at you. Like, man, she you never see from her face like what is going behind the scene. But definitely, thank you for being a role model. If anyone have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. And in the meantime, if you can, Joni, if you can share some of the, sometimes like you need to have some big anchors that will help us to anchor yourself, like some kind of anchor thoughts or anchor experiences to remember that good old, like Baba says, remember your childhood days and things like that.
Yeah.
Share some of those deep experiences that you had that pulls you back into that, like some of the seniors when they share, when they met Baba, Sakar Baba, they had this bodiless experience, and some like Jagdish Bhai's experience, or any of the seniors, if you hear, like Baba takes them into lab and then they go into bodiless state. And if you can share some of those deep experiences, that will be helpful. And the role of Madhuban, Dadis, that would be great.
Well, I think the daddies were such role models. There was one little clip, Avyati Paravar, where Daddy Prakash Mani said, she said, I admired, or my role model was Mama. And she says, I cannot be Mama. I cannot have Mama's part. My part is different. But she said, why would I not want to be like Mama? So for me, whenever I saw the daddies, it was like that for me. It was like, why would you not want to be like that? But learning how to be that is a step-by-step learning process. But to be like that. So now, Baba says, be like the Father, be like Brahma Baba. So in Sunday's Murli, when they were talking about this, now my Hindi's not too good, this smrti, this awareness that kept coming up during the Murli, keeping those examples before you are so helpful. And one time when Macy Bai used to come to our center, and I had a little situation, and I wasn't feeling too good about it. And I thought to myself, what does Macy Bai do? And it came up in my mind. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to do it and just go on. So I don't think sometimes when Baba says you're not ordinary, you are extraordinary. And to see the specialties of not only the daddies and mama and baba and, but each other. That is such a delight. When I look around me and I see, oh, this is a better way to do it. They're doing it a better way. Okay, I'm going to do it that way. Or this one has such a specialty. And my specialty is something different. And Baba says, I need all your specialties, all of them. And so I used to work with someone, two Brahmins in the center, and we were like a team. And I could see what she could do that I couldn't do. And then she had a notion of what I could do that she couldn't do. So what we did is we learned to work as a team. And so it was like, okay, what can you do? Okay, you can't do that? No problem. I can do that. And so we learned to work as this team. And it was such a close, loving relationship. It was very special because we knew each other's specialties. And so I think that keeping those examples in front of us, why wouldn't I want to be like Mama? Why wouldn't I want to be like Brahma Baba? Of course you would. Baba says you have to become number one. You have to. And Baba says you're all number wise. So the other day, it was very, very interesting. I heard Sister Denise reinterpret that phrase, number wise. And what she said was, because number wise used to make me feel like a little competitive, like a little, higher, lower, this, that. Number wise. It means Baba's talking about the uniqueness and the specialties of each one of us. So in Living Values, they say everybody is unique and special. And we are, but we forget. So for me, seeing the daddies as those examples, why wouldn't I want to be like the daddies? And some people say, well, if you say that, that's kind of arrogant, or my goodness, your ego is showing. But why wouldn't you want to be like Brahma Baba? Why wouldn't you want to be like the daddies? And so to go to Madhavan and to have had the opportunity to have met them while they were still in the body, but also too, it's just like Brahma Baba in the Avyat stage. You say, well, the double foreigners didn't get to meet Brahma Baba. No, we didn't. But we get to meet him every single morning, every evening, whenever we want. He's there in the angelic form. We can't say we didn't meet him. We can't say we didn't meet the daddies. They're there for us. And those are like the anchors for me, those role models. And so it's like when you need to think of yourself in this role model stage. Somebody somewhere is watching me. Baba says they've heard your words. Now they're watching you. And I had someone say that to me when my husband passed away, and I was faced with innumerable challenges with his passing. And one of his family members said to me, "We're watching you." But they meant it in a kind way. They meant it in a role model way. And I thought, yes, the importance of what I think, say, do, and that sounds like a lot, but it's possible. If I think of myself in that position, and and when Murli Baba says, never think of yourself as being alone again. So that could mean a couple different things. It could mean I need to remember Baba. Baba has to be with me all the time. And it can also mean that I have taken up this study, and there is a level of responsibility without feeling burdened. We need to feel natural about this. But I'm an influencer, and I know you've heard that phrase before. We don't have subjects, but we influence. And I know Sister Rita in Boston was talking about being this influence in her earlier Brahmin life when she came to Baba in her workplace. And she never said to anybody, "I'm a meditator, I'm a Brahma Kumari." She never said any of those things. She was just an example of something that they were catching. And anyway, she ended up taking a few to Madhavan and this and that. But it's really not about the words. The words are like over. Now it's what I do. So, Om Shanti. Well, let's take a deep breath. Just breathe in. Fill up those lungs. And just breathe out. One more time, breathe in. Fill up those lungs. Breathe out. Just let go. Observe the outer world. Let all that busyness go. Time to slow down. I return to my original nature. My inner world of peace. And my thoughts become slower. And my thoughts become fewer. And I am that beautiful, beautiful, sparkling star. That point of pure and powerful spark of concentrated energy. And I sit in the silence of my inner world. And I become so powerful in this silence. And in this silence, I can feel the presence of God. I feel so safe in this presence. I feel this wave of God's love washing over me. And I become like a fragrant flower. in these vibrations of God's presence. Reach out to the world, to my family, to my workplace, to Baba's center, Baba's children. And this is how I protect myself. And I can retreat into this inner world in God's presence whenever I need to. I am never alone. Om Shanti, everyone. Om Shanti.